What is the connection between Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia and Rastafarians? Hello, this is Sankofa Pan-African series. Please continue to support us by quickly clicking on the subscription button if you've not already done so. Thank you. Now, the foundations of Rastafarianism can be traced to centuries before it became a coherent movement, when the idea of Ethiopianism as a synonym for black people, emphasizing an idealized Africa, began to take hold among black peoples in the Americas. Even though most of the enslaved people embraced Christianity, they interpreted passages of the Bible, like the one known as the Ethiopian prophecy, which offered hope, and is found in Psalm 68, verse 31. Now it says, "Princes shall come forth out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall soon stretch forth her hands unto God." Now, by the early 20th century, the belief in Ethiopia as a place of freedom and refuge for Africans in captivity was strengthened through the rise of the Pan-African movement and the teachings of leaders like the Jamaican-born Marcus Garvey, who urged his followers to look towards Africa, where a black redeemer would emerge. In other parts of the Caribbean, texts like the Holy PB, also known as the Black Man's Bible, emerged. The Holy PB was written by Robert Atlee Rogers from Anguilla Island. Now, these texts use the word Ethiopian in the same way that classical writers like Phyllis Wheatley and ancient historians use it to describe Africans from any part of the world. Now, it acknowledged Africans as the real chosen people of God. Now, other significant texts like the Royal Parchment Scroll of Black Supremacy by Fitzballantyne Petersburg and the Promise Key by Leonard P. Howells were primary sources of influence to many in the early Rastafarian movement. Now, by the time the last emperor of Ethiopia was crowned, Ethiopia had taken on an even more special significance for many people of African descent who saw him as the Messiah, who would lead them to freedom from oppression. It is believed that Rastafarians derived their name from the name that Emperor Haile Selassie was given at birth. Haile Selassie, of course, was the last Ethiopian emperor. Now, Haile Selassie was given the name Rastafari when he was born on the 23rd of July in 1892. Rastafari's father was a chief advisor to Emperor Menelik III, who was the ruler when Rastafari was born. He then took the regal name Haile Selassie I when he was crowned. Haile Selassie represents for Rastafarians the fulfillment of a prophecy, which, like I said earlier, has been credited to Marcus Garvey. Sellassie is believed by Rastafarians to be the Redeemer, the Messiah, who was written about in the Bible's book of Revelations as the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. They believed he would bring about a deliverance, and they still hold fast to the idea of Africa as the land of their ancestors and the epicenter of their spiritual epicenter. Now, following Haile Selassie's accession as emperor of Ethiopia, some Jamaican preachers started preaching his superiority over King George V of England, even though Jamaica was still a colony of England. By the mid-1930s, the Ethiopian emperor was regarded by Rastafarians as the living embodiment of God. Rastafarianism therefore emerged as a Pan-African movement, Pan-African spiritual movement based on the belief in Emperor Haile Selassie's divinity. Rastafarians came to prominence under preachers like Leonard Howell, author of the Promise Key, which I mentioned earlier. He also founded the first prominent Rastafarian community in 1940. And by the 1950s, many more branches surfaced, and within 20 years, the movement had become a global one through the music of Bob Marley, a devoted Rastafarian. As I said in an earlier episode, the origin of Haile Selassie's dynasty is often traced to the union between King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba through their son Menelik I, who was born after Sheba's historical visit to Jerusalem. Now, the last emperor of Ethiopia, Emperor Haile Selassie, is believed to have descended directly from this dynasty. He ascended the throne in 1930, and it is interesting to note that during Haile Selassie's reign, an imperial coat of arms was adopted. The coat of arms comprised of a throne flanked by two angels, one holding a sword and a pair of scales, the other holding a scepter. The throne has a Christian cross, a Star of David, and a crescent on it, representing the Christian, Jewish, and Islamic traditions of Ethiopia. The coat of arms also has a red mantle and a crown, as well as an emblem representing the Lion of Judah. Thank you very much for being a part of this episode of the Sankofa Pan-African series. Please help us to sustain us by sharing our videos with your friends and contacts. See you next time when we'll be talking about how Ethiopia managed to escape the scramble for Africa.